Nicole Segura. Here. Kristen Bassler. Here. David Costa. Here. Sophie Shattuck. Here. Four present.
Okay, so public participation. During each regular and special open meeting of the board, any person may comment or ask questions of the board, subject to reasonable established time constraints. The board listens to comments and questions during public participation. The board's response to comments and questions is managed through policy 3:30 and not by the board during a public meeting. So, yep. Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I know we have several guests here tonight, so I'll allow Mrs. Model to introduce our guests.
Yes, absolutely. So in the building administrative board report, we highlighted a lot of things that happened in this last month, and one of the things that we wanted to also highlight was Mr. Fryland and our very talented musicians. So please welcome.
Hi, so thank you for having me. Happy to be able to just speak briefly on some of the things that we've accomplished throughout the school year in our band program and to have a number of our students present. So some of the things, I'm basically going to go over some of the individual accolades and ensemble accolades that we've gotten over the school year in addition to all of the events that we typically do here at the school. I'm going to start with the individual ones. If any of you are the individuals that are recognized for stuff, just like wave to the boards. I think you are. So way back in November, we had 4 of our students make the Illinois Music Education Association District 7 honor bands. So we had Sydney here, percussion. We also had and then I don't think any of the others are here, but I'll state them anyway. Corn on euphonium, and then Liam and Reed both on jazz trumpet. So they were our. And then in January, we had 5 students, which was the made us the third most represented school in the state of Illinois at the All Illinois Junior Band, and that was James as our first chair euphonium player of 4 selected in the state. Simon was our third chair tuba player. Liam was our third chair trumpet player of 12 in the entire state. Brandon was our second chair bari sax out of 2, and we actually had both of the bari saxes, and Taylor was our first chair bari sax out of 2 in the entire state. So we got that. And then 2 of our students, one of the groups that my wife and I are playing is called the North Shore Concert Band. It's one of the most well-recognized community bands in the not just the state of Illinois, but also the whole country. They actually were most recently invited to play at the Midwest Band Orchestra Clinic in December of this upcoming year. They do an annual event called the Lifetime of Music, and we had 2 students selected for that, Liam on trumpet and Sydney again on percussion. And then several notable things for our jazz band. They do a bunch of festivals around February, March, and April, and those events give a lot of individual accolades as well. So at the Jazz in the Meadows Festival, which is one of the largest jazz festivals in the entire Midwest, we had 2 musicians recognized for receiving outstanding musician certificates, which was James on the trombone and Hank, who's a 5th grader, on vibraphone. And then at the Mundelein Jazz Invitational, our bass player, Corn, was recognized for receiving the Outstanding Junior High Soloist of the Day for all junior high bands. So she's also not here, but let's not. She's a 6th grader, and she got that over a bunch of older kids, too. And then we had 6 kids receive Outstanding Musician Certificates at that same exact event. So we had Otto on trumpet received 1. James on trombone, Corn on bass, Hank on vibraphone and on drum set, Reed on trumpet, and Brandon on alto sax. To kind of wrap the individual ones, these ones are secret. You can't find these ones out for about 25 to 26 hours at our concert tomorrow. But we give 3 awards out to outstanding 8th graders, the Roar Award for Band, the Woody Herman Jazz Award, and Directors Award for Band. So who knows who's here that might get one or not? I have no idea. I haven't decided those things. But you'll find that out tomorrow if you're present. Which you really should. You should come to that concert if you're available, and you can really see like how much the band program means to these kids. Like the 8th graders are all like, oh my god, it's our last concert, and it means a lot to them. But it also means a lot to the younger kids too, because I've seen them get really emotional for a lot of their friends graduating from our program here. Moving to the ensemble recognitions that we've gotten, there's several of those also, so thank you for your time. A lot of these are jazz ones because we do a lot of festivals for that, but we also have our advanced band participates in contests as well. So going back to the Jazz in the Meadows event, Jazz 1 received a Division I Superior rating, 3rd year in a row in our 3rd year attending that event, and they placed 3rd in the entire junior high division for the 2nd year in a row. And then at the Mundelein Jazz Invitational, our rhythm section earned the Outstanding Section of the Day Award for the junior high division. And so Sydney again is part of that, as was George and Hank and Corin. And that's also the 3rd consecutive year one of our sections in Jazz 1 has received that award. You can see those right over there on the wall. There's 2 small black lamps, and then they changed it to paper, and that one's in a nice bigger frame. So we just have our saxophones left that need to earn that award, so someone's gonna be in charge of that over the next few years. And then we had our district level contests over at Bernodis for the Illinois Grade School Music Association, where both advanced band and Jazz 1 received Division I ratings for however many years in a row we've done that. It's great for us. I've lost track of that. Another thing, we attend a non-competitive event called the Prairie State Middle School Band Festival, and it's just a comment, it's the only thing that we use as a prep for state. But for the 3rd year in a row, our percussion session in advanced band, which she's part of again, Sydney was recognized by the adjudicator specifically for percussion as informally the best percussion section that they heard the entire day, the entire event. So much so this past year that it was a nice little thing for me to be proud of, that the guy thought I have to be a percussionist because they were so good. And I was like, no, I'm a player. So that was nice for them, and a little bit nice for me too. Then state contest, advanced band received their Division I Superior rating, Jazz 1 received Division I, as well as the High Honors distinction, which means you have to either have a perfect score or 1 point away from a perfect score. It's Jazz 1's 4th year in a row getting that distinction, and their 2nd year in a row where they received an overall perfect score. And as part of our state performances, one of the adjudicators at the advanced band clinic after our performance, who is a very prominent retired junior high band director, who's worked both with our advanced band and with our Jazz 1, he did make a point to refer to our band program as one of the best junior high band programs in the state of Illinois. So. Shorter than I did last year, but so thank you for your time. Let's give them one more round of applause. Is it just you and is it just you? Yeah, percussion. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Why don't you guys all stand up so we can applaud you all?
You guys can go home. Unless you want to stay for some really exciting news about curriculum and stuff like that. Very exciting. So exciting that I'm going this way. Thank you.
And just to point out a couple other things. Our board report, we do have 2 8th graders teachers who, their artwork was submitted and has been selected by the Illinois Art Education Association. And so will be on display as, in the conference in the fall, that travels around the state that art show as well. So that's a great honor. In addition to all of the accolades we just heard from the band, we do have a lot of seventh graders who have qualified for track and field state competition this weekend. And that's going to highlight our student athletes.
Yes, you have an update in there, but we also have an additional update as of Saturday. So on Saturday, our seventh grade boys and our seventh grade girls placed second at sectionals, which was a phenomenal accomplishment for them. With that, we are sending 3 individuals and a relay team down to state this weekend on Friday and Saturday. So congratulations to Easton for long jump, Zoe for the 1600 and the 800. Brooke is doing hurdles and she's part of the 4x1 relay team with Brenna, Emma, and Ellis. Congratulations to our students.
And of course, there's a couple other things that have been highlighted in here that have occurred over the last month. And then a couple months ago, the administration provided the Board of Education with a program evaluation for various areas that they evaluated this year. And so we have the privilege tonight of having Mrs. Joy Rumpert, our curriculum coach, and Mr. Brian Buckley here to speak about the curriculum program evaluation process and then the particular program that's being recommended for adoption. So please welcome
All right, thanks so much for having us tonight. We'll try to keep it short, but this has been kind of a lengthy, involved process, so we definitely want to make sure that we answer all of our questions and provide as much information as we possibly can. So thanks so much for having us. Throughout the presentation tonight, we wanted to be able to give you some background information on our current curricular resources that we use, and obviously our rationale behind potential adoption. We'll take a look at the research that was done behind the program, our timeline, and the process, and ultimately share what we're suggesting to be used as a core program and an intervention program in the building, which has been selected by a team. So with that, we're going to kind of start off by talking about what we currently have here at Prairie Grove Junior High. Our current ELA curriculum has really been a process of development across a lot of years. In 2015, 2016, the district hired an outside consultant to lead the development of our curriculum. The backwards design model was used to support us in defining their learning goals and targets for our students that were based on Common Core standards, which are now known as standards. Following the development of assessment pieces, curricular units and instruction were put together by our highly qualified staff with the support of various different consultants. The result was ultimately 6 units of study. Assessment revisions were completed by the staff. Those assessment revisions have been ongoing and probably still ongoing throughout the process. Aside from the core in the ELA program study, we also wanted to take a look at how we're supporting and differentiating our instruction. So as part of the review, we looked at supports for students that may need additional instruction beyond what is given in their daily classroom. Currently, our reading intervention programs are completely separate from the core curriculum, and students that may need additional instruction in reading receive small groups in lieu of an exploratory course. We use Read 180 for both of the different tiers of instruction for support. In addition, these tiers of instruction receive the same amount of instructional time. On the other end, when we're talking about differentiation, we also took a look at our populations of students that may require acceleration. Our current accelerated courses use the grade level above curriculum, learning targets, materials, and assessments. Similar to our geometry course, our 8th grade accelerated language arts and literature students are exposed to priority standards and materials from a freshman level course. This course in literature and language arts does not provide high school credit, Rather, its focus is exposure to content. I've worked closely with the leaders in our Prairie High School to obtain insights into what their freshman course looks like. So that way our team can really ensure that the students are exposed to preparatory material and are ready for high school. So with that, we continued a deeper dive into the curricular review process, which really began in the spring of last year, and it included our 6th through 8th grade ELA department. That department consists of Wendy Carr, Sandra Rosner, Chance Rowley, Megan Heiner, and Ryan Buckley. Our staff evaluated these current curricular resources and programs by completing what was called the EQUIP rubric. At the time, that was the recommended evaluation tool from the state. Based on the feedback from the team, the strengths within our current curriculum included a balance of reading and writing, the alignment of our rubrics and proficiency scales to our assessments, and that it facilitates discussions with with texts that are complex. Identified areas of weaknesses that have been discussed and noted in that survey included the lack of resources for explicit vocabulary and grammar instruction, missing or non-existent supports for differentiation for our students, which include resources for both our daily instruction and for our assessment pieces. It also has been identified that different resources are being used to supplement some of these areas from grade to grade. So there's a lack of cohesion. As part of the program study, another component that was taken into account was the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan that was developed as a result of Public Act 103-402. While the state plan, which is a little light read, I have the link in there, it's like 300 pages. It's lengthy. Okay, it doesn't explicitly state that there's a shift to the science of reading for instructional practice. However, it explains that reading heavily relies on the basis of explicit instruction in complex shorter texts, as well as its highlighted vocabulary, spelling, and grammar practices. Some highlights of the plan that are related specifically to middle school instruction include the need for differentiation of instruction and the rights of all of our students to have access to curriculum and classroom environments that foster learning. That includes curricular materials that may be presented in intermediate languages. So based on our staff's evaluation of our existing curricular resources and the State Board of Education's literacy plan, along with our district's need to have consistent, cohesive, progressional curricular resources across grades 6 through 8, a curriculum adoption review continued throughout this year. Okay, here's kind of our timeline for this year. Late in the summer and at the beginning of the year, several local districts were contacted to research materials and initiatives that were being used for overall literacy improvement. Outside districts of the region were also contacted for feedback, insights, what kind of programs they were using. In the fall of 2024, the 6 through 8 ELA team met and we reviewed the information we had gathered from the EQUIP rubric in the spring. At that time, I also presented research and the key events that led to the development of the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan. In July of 2024, the state of Illinois released a new literacy curriculum evaluation tool, and the rubric was reviewed by the team at this time. As a team, we agreed that exploring materials was important and necessary to support our students. From there, based on the needs of our district programs, information from those outside districts, ed reports, 2 curriculums were presented to the team. These 2 were Amplified ELA, middle school, and status and perspectives. The team was then given time to review some of the sample kits from those those two curriculums. Following our discussion, I also wanted our team to have the opportunity to channel their own educational connections, personal experiences, and conduct their own research to see if there was anything else that we may be interested in exploring. The team was given a specific time frame to conduct this research in order to provide us enough time to analyze those potential programs and obtain certificates. At that time, the suggestion of StudySync was brought to the table, and it proved to be a potential contender for the district. So with those three curriculums kind of narrowed and finalized, presentations for the whole ELA team were scheduled from each of the companies, and notes were taken on quick questions, highlights being noted, potential weaknesses. And ultimately, we recognize that as a team, there truly isn't a one size fits all when it comes to curriculum. However, a lot of them have a lot of great features that are similar. The larger team at the end of those presentations decided that truly all three were great choices. So from there, we narrowed down our large ELA team to our most senior educators to represent each of the grade levels in the finalization process. This ELA team, leadership team, consisted of Brian Buckley, Wendy Carr, and Megan Einer. They participated in additional presentations from each of the companies on those curricular resources and spent time evaluating each to determine which would best meet the needs of our staff, our students, and then the programs. At the end of the meeting, it was decided that ultimately, due to the engaging content, Amplified ELA for middle school was the best solution all around. The new literacy evaluation tool was used to finalize this process at that meeting. Project some of the data and go over that. I have some resources here on the table that, when we're done, everybody can take a look through that are from Amplify. These resources include like grade level overviews, student and teacher samples, program guides, all kinds of good stuff. So up on the screen right here, these graphs illustrate the feedback from our ELA leadership team in grades 6 through 8. Amplify rated higher in most of the areas like developmental appropriateness, supports for remediation and enrichment, diversity, and providing multiple opportunities for student growth. It is linked to these current best practices that are found within the Illinois Comprehensive Literacy Plan and the science of reading. In addition to those practices, some of the highlights that we found as a team was the full gamut of library resources, and the fact that it also offers novel study options, which we were really excited about, and some of the novels that we've learned to love throughout the years. Teachers can tap into those resources and flexibly integrate them with really realistic pacing. Amplified ELA also encourages independent reading, which we really liked outside of the curriculum. With an independent reading journal that can be used in a whole bunch of different ways. Okay, so now we'll just take a look at what the potential adoption for Amplify will look like for our programs and how that will refine that. So the adoption of Amplify will ultimately result in us creating opportunities to strengthen all of these instructional supports for our students, programs, and our staff to give us the opportunity to make what is great greater and outline a really a more defined process for our students in identification and growth. With the Amplified ELA program, a support curriculum that's called M-Class is suggested to be paired with Amplify ELA, the support program. In addition to our core instruction, this resource would provide educators the opportunity to have something linked to core resources for reteaching, data collection, progress monitoring for students that need extra support. With that, it also has specific individual or small group lesson plans which help to, meet very specific goals outlined by the program. Our acceleration program with Amplified ELA will run very, very similar to our current program that we have. The grade level above curriculum from Amplify will be taught to accelerated courses in grades 6 and 7. Our 8th grade accelerated program will tap into the same resources that have been aligned with the high school. A continued process of communication with District 155 leaders to ensure consistency and prep for our students for success in high school will definitely be ongoing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Buckley, our current 6th grade ELA teacher and accelerated teacher. And he's going to highlight some of the things that we found within him.
So, in addition to looking into this program with all the other ELA teachers for the last several months, we've gotten a new teacher for about a month now. At least I have, and the other teachers have jumped in on it in the last few weeks as well. So we talked to all the other teachers and just looked at what are the things that we really like about this program so far. Joy kind of mentioned this already, but the program is very flexible. So there's tons of stuff for a teacher in there, and it's all laid out, but a teacher can adapt it to the student's needs. For example, there's a robust digital program, but there's also paper copies of the books and the journals for the students to actually, close the Chromebook, take out a book and a pencil and actually do some writing, which we haven't done, too much of it in England. The differentiation is great. I actually teach with a special education co-teacher, and we love how every student's able to participate in every single activity. In some cases, the program will break things down differently for different students. It's kind of amazing. And then there are also available supplemental activities for teachers to use as they see fit. So there's a library of full books for kids to read. There's a program for vocabulary, grammar, poetry units, and on and on. I think one of the best things that makes this program work is that the students really like it. It's engaging. It's very student friendly as far as how they navigate it, but also the texts are definitely something that the kids are getting into. And it's also a lot of classic literature that teachers can really just get a lot of for years to come. And then within the actual activities, there's a variety of stuff for kids to do. So there's reading and writing, of course, but there's, even so far, we've had acting, some drawing, group work, partner work. So it's very engaging for the students. And then for the teachers, it does a great job of organizing student work and their data in a way that's easy to access and share. And there's a really cool way to provide students feedback on their work. So you can easily kind of customize your comments back to them. So there's this dialogue going back and forth between the students and the teachers. I have to say, so far, I really like it a lot. It's a great program.
Okay. So with that, I have some links to provide some additional information. Somebody else here too, this would be great, but. So these links are resources that parents can further explore Amplified ELA, particularly for middle school. While the publisher is the same as our current K-5 program, the middle school solution is considered a completely different program. It offers tools that are designed for middle schoolers, and the link to the Parent Hub will give directions for getting started at home, as well as insight to some of the texts and materials. I'm just going to do like a little overview here. So this is what the Parent Hub looks like. Another nice feature for parents is that there's a contact us button here, and they are readily available to help in this sort of moment in live chat. So, homework and all of that stuff. On here, you'll also find outlines of all of the digital resources for everything that we have printed here for, unit outlines for grade 6 through 8 and so on. On the presentation, I also provided a link to our district curriculum and instruction website, which is a great resource to find any information regarding teaching and learning here in Prairie Grove. On the website, you can find my contact information, including my email and phone number. Always willing to answer any additional questions or anything in regards to our curriculum and programs. So ultimately, it's our suggestion to continue movement forward with the Amplified ELA for next year. We appreciate all of your time. If there's any questions.
One question.
Yes.
On the program evaluation, it went 0 to 15, I'm assuming those were individual counts, or was that a rank of how you felt about that portion of the program in 3 separate programs?
That was how we felt about the component of each separate program of the 3 programs. So yeah, so we had Amplify, My Perspectives, and Study Stand on there.
Okay.
And then from there, that all of those questions are linked to that, the new Illinois curriculum evaluation tool.
And then was this evaluation the larger group, or was this the smaller senior staff?
This is the narrow curriculum data was from our smaller staff.
Smaller staff.
Yes, yes. Yeah, at the larger discussions, I think, our larger team was really like, these are the 3 best, they're the best of the best, and we're kind of good with that, with anything. So.
So the larger group helped narrow down to 3, and then the senior staff went in and said,
And
these
said-
3, this is how we really kind of get into the weeds and rank these components of the game.
Yes.
We also had time to go back to our grade level teams and kind of update them on some of the training that we were receiving as a small group along the way. So the bigger group was always a part of that discussion, right?
Mhm.
So,
Do you anticipate any challenges with implementing this new curriculum as far as teacher expectations, learning curves, any sort of, how would the teachers feel about it? They're gonna have to implement things. Do they need extra time to prepare?
Well, definitely. I think, in terms of implementation, there's always need for time to prepare additional PD, time for collaboration, especially for co-teachers to kind of work through, co-planning and things like that. In terms of implementation of the content, whether it's math or ELA, when we look at a curriculum, it's always designed assuming that the students have received the curriculum from that curriculum the year before. So, from a student lens, we'll probably be building some background, a lot of, just bumping up some of their, knowledge on the digital tools and stuff like that. So that's what I would anticipate for sure from a student lens.
Okay. And would you anticipate any issues with, as far as like the curriculum and the, testing and things like that? Is this are we gonna see a lag in test scores maybe next fall that our kids are taking while they're transitioning into learning this new program? Or would you expect their testing to kind of be consistent?
Well, I would hope it would be consistent, but research-based really shows that, on an implementation year, sometimes we experience a dip of what we see in data, and then we kind of like pick up just because, it's a phase-in, it's a implementation. However, in some regards, we haven't seen that with some of our curriculums, we haven't seen dips, so, so with a strong implementation, good support, I think as a team, we feel pretty confident that we can keep the kids moving forward.
All the work is aligned to all the standards. So, as far as the standards, that remains pretty much very similar, but just a different way of interacting with them.
I have no questions. First of all, really well done, and it's really well thought through, and all 3 programs are awesome. So K-5 does use Amplify.
They use CKLA.
And then we still use Read 180 for tier 2.
So in clarifying the tier process, we'll use M-Class for like a tier 2 support. And then Read 180 would be utilized for like a tier 3 support, which is Read 180 is more intensive, one-on-one. So yeah, so we would, evaluate students who maybe are not necessarily making growth in our tier 2.
Good decision. For the 6th and 7th grade accelerated, did you say you'll continue to use the grade level above?
Yes.
But for 8th grade accelerated, they don't have 9th grade, so what will you use there, I'm sorry?
No, you're totally fine. So for our accelerated curriculum in 8th grade, we're going to continue to use the curriculum that we have worked with Prairie Ridge High School on, to make sure that we're still hitting those standards, and we'll use some of the similar tools that they use too.
Just one last question, which you might not be able to completely answer yet, but I think parents are always concerned about screen time.
Absolutely.
And so even when you go to the site, I think it's ill represented because they have kids on the computer.
Yeah.
So then that kind of
That
ignites
sells
like
it as
a
that's what
worry.
it's supposed, yeah.
So are you being thoughtful about the screen time in the classrooms? And if this switch happens, how much of this is actually online versus paper, pencil books?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So actually, when we started the pilot trial process, the suggestion, because it is completely hybrid, so it could be taught 100% book or 100% online. The hybrid approach looks at the flexibility of being able to use both. From an instructional standpoint, especially when you're learning new resources and tools, it can be overwhelming. That can be a little bit overwhelming. So in working with the pilot, it was suggested to start with the digital tools, get the kids kind of used to that, and then we've already started to try to close the Chromebooks and come away for an entire day, and let's try to go Chromebook free. I think it's good, to say that a balance in everything is so important, and having the option within the classroom to be able to say, that's the writing journals and get some humor in here. So,
Yeah, absolutely, you're being
Okay.
thoughtful about it, there's a
Yeah,
transition, you
yeah.
shouldn't worry.
yeah, and as a team, we've discussed too, that it is really just high priority, like, we like books. We like books, we like kids highlighting in books, we like them writing. The digital stuff is super cool. There's awesome, the kids like it, graphic novel with some very interactive, but there's always those books.
Mr. Buckley, the kids' learning curve with all of it, did they pick it up pretty quickly on how to
Faster than the teachers.
And so, just because of, doing the math one that we just did, I was wondering, I know you can't compare and contrast the two, but, the math seemed a little bit more rigorous on learning how to handle all of the digital stuff and some of that, so I was kind of wondering how they did with this.
Really no issues. I mean, there's a little bit of like, how do I find this? What lesson are we going up? But I would say after the first few days, we were moving pretty smoothly, and it's pretty intuitive, especially for young people.
Yeah.
And then the teachers, get ahead of it, maybe one step behind.
Yes. I think one of Brian's kids actually, I came in and they were like, here, this is how you do this.
It was the paper books were like, what? Yeah, they were missing their streaks for a minute, but then it was nice, just have all the Chromebooks closed, and they settled into it, so I'm looking forward to doing more mix.
Like the hybrid.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm a huge proponent of Prairie, we do the Chromebooks down.
Yeah, yeah.
I like it.
Questions?
Is the entire ELA team, how do they all feel? Are they ready to move on to a new, is there any resistance in your team about it, or is everyone pretty excited to kind of take the plunge?
I think everybody's excited to have something cohesive, which has definitely been, a need in the team for a long time. And recognizing things like our grammar instruction, we're really doing various different things from grade to grade. And having a good, clear progression. The feedback that I received is that there's a lot of confidence in having, a pond to fish in, knowing that those resources are gonna be linked to what the kids are doing the next year, and that the tools are good. In any program, I would definitely say that there's favorite units and not so favorite units, so overall, I would say there's ones that we're like, well, we can't wait till we get to Frankenstein, for sure, like, let's get to Frankenstein, let's teach that, But in terms of resistance, everybody is ready for a tool.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mrs. Rumper, you mentioned that there's no one curriculum that fits all programs. And I'm looking at slide 7, and I look at your data from your small group when you did the evaluation. Even Amplify didn't have perfect scores.
Absolutely.
So considering tier 1 instruction, no curriculum fits everybody, and you don't have perfect scores in Amplify. What do you foresee, if any, supplemental products will need to be used with this to make sure we have programs that fit the needs of all in tier 1?
Well, I think in terms of supplemental programs, that's really hard to identify right now because we don't have any data to say, what from the curriculum could we say is weak and missing in this area. However, in some of those categories, you're looking at instructional practice, and that's where, our highly qualified staff can design lessons and hone their expertise to really, make a good curriculum soar. So in terms of supplemental resources, I can't really answer that right now because it has pretty much everything. So it does have everything. It has everything. I say pretty much everything. It has everything.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So there's no action item tonight for curriculum for the board, just the presentation. Feel free to look at the materials and have an action item on the docket for next month. For approval, so look at the cost factors and so the item that I have for the board tonight would be my replacement. So next year will be my 9th and final year at Prairie Grove. We went through a process earlier this year for a deputy that did not pan out. We're in the same time frame-ish over last year, and now you have some decisions to make on how you want to proceed with superintendent search for after I retire. I've given you some things to think about. Obviously, the earlier you are in the process, maybe the better pick you have of candidates. There were, I won't say a lot of issues, but there were some bumps in the road in our previous process that the board as a whole wasn't too thrilled with. Yes, the question is that it's up to you, how you want to proceed, what do you want to see? Do you want to see presentations from IS, School Board Association? Do you want to have presentations from the other search firms to see what they have to offer? You've done it a variety of ways. You've used the School Board Association for 2 searches recently, 3 searches. You used School Exec Connect back in 2014. There are a variety of groups out there that do that kind of process. It's totally up to you what you want to do. The School Board Association did tell us, of course, that since we paid for a search last year, you didn't find someone, they'll do the next search for nothing. The cost is a factor. You have that to consider as well. Their cost is 0. Anybody else that you're going to use is going to have $1 not associated with that. Once there, you need to also look at the job description. Do you want to make any changes to that? Do you want to look at the combination of the superintendent/business manager, superintendent only, add a CSBO part-time later on? All those things you start thinking about over the next 6 to 8 weeks so you can have a plan moving forward as we get August.
Can you, cost wise, I know we, I thought we saw at one point for those different firms, can you?
We had some, depending on the menu of choices that you want to have, if they're gonna do focus groups, it's a little more expensive. Usually the straight search is somewhere between $14,000 and $18,000 from one of the other firms, usually. Sometimes they have sliding scale based on your enrollment size and what all you want them to do.
Who were our lead people from ISD?
Al Mulkey is the lead person for this area in the School Board Association. He had somebody else in the office that assisted with their screening process. I'm trying to think of the name, it's not coming to me right now. But Al's the one that came to the board meetings, talked to the board. He's the one that came and brought the names and they started.
I have a couple thoughts. So one, I think cost should always be a factor. And we were looking for a deputy superintendent, not a superintendent. Those search pools are gonna be completely different. Two, I obviously wasn't here, so I can't speak to it, but if we weren't happy with that particular person in the firm, they have tons of people and could ask for someone else or just be very clear on what we like. So initially, just as one person, I would prefer to post with ISB to start and give some clear direction and see where it goes. I also have concerns with the transition with the CSBO being under the superintendent. I think that that's will limit our pool of superintendent candidates having to also be the CSBO. And I'm concerned about the transition of money between the two people. Whether we talk about it or not tonight or not, I would like to pull off the CSBO and hire a part-time person, both at least commit to that next year and the following year, so that there's a smooth transition with the money between the two superintendents. So I'd like to put that on the table for a conversation either tonight or at some point.
Timeline wise, remind me when we started, when we first met with Al last year, was July, June?
We have Al in June in open session. He followed up with a variety of emails to Joni and myself. We helped craft the documents that they published. They took applications through like the first week of October. So they had about an 8-week period where they're looking.
Is it feasible to meet with them? Again, like I
Oh,
do to
absolutely.
get it moved forward more swiftly. And I agree with the CSBO. I to take that off as well. I think that's kind of a lot. It's a big hat that you were wearing. And I think it's kind of a lot with such short notice to like get a new superintendent for next year to expect them to be able to wear all of those hats when we are trying to move, like focus on our ELA math scores and like the success for our students once they leave here to go to high school.
I will call out that having the combined goal does save the district a significant amount of money where, you know, it's already been raised inside the community, we've got administrative costs, right? So we're able to find the right candidate that is carrying CSBO and is a superintendent. My opinion is we would be crazy not to seriously consider that because it's a significant cost savings for the district.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I do think you increased Dr. Pete's salary when you gave him the CSBO job as well. If I'm not mistaken, you can speak to that later. So, and I think a part-time CSBO would be plenty for the district. I don't disagree long-term. I'm worried about the transition. And so we don't know what kind of candidate we're going to get. And there can be no sloppiness between this year and the following year, between the superintendent transition. I don't know if you're going to have much overlap of time. So I don't disagree, there could potentially be an slight overinvestment, probably $10,000 to $20,000 to ensure that the transition is smooth. Also, I don't think we would be paying the next candidate what we would be paying John if they didn't have their CSBO. And I think that could also be decided once we see the slate of candidates, but I don't disagree that there's a savings if the superintendent does both jobs.
What if we get creative with some of the districts that are smaller like ours? For instance, like Fox River Grove or Wonder Lake, we could potentially share a CSDO.
You could, I also think there are a ton of retired people out there who would do a day or two in a possible transition period. If the board thought about committing to like 2 days a week for 2 years, and then reassess.
But then we're still, the transition immediately turns into a long-term plan. Because when the superintendent is going to come here and join us, we specifically put in the parameters of, by this date, you need to have your CSBF. So we do run that risk then of what's supposed to be a temporary fix becoming a long-term standard.
Possibly.
Rebecca, can you speak to some of the concerns? You mentioned worried about the transition several times.
Yeah, so, well, I think one of our major jobs is fiscal responsibility. I haven't looked over the complete books, but I want that. It feels like our fund balance is getting a little low. It feels like there's some things happening, and as John transitions, where is that job going? So maybe it's a superintendent candidate, maybe it's being split between people. I also just think that oversight between the superintendent and the CSBO, I think it depends what we want from our superintendent. Do we want them focused on culture, instructional practices, raising our math and ELA scores? So as a board, we have to decide what we want them to do. Do we want them completely focused on facilities and finances? I prefer the superintendent is focused on the educational practices in the district. And we were to hire someone, at least for the short term, and I understand there's a risk, to do the transition between John and the next person. I also think there's a risk with John walking out the door and someone else walking in that it just gets messy. We're not gonna be super confident until this person gets in and shows us their skill set. And no one else in the organization knows what a CSBO does. So we're putting a lot of faith in a person that's walking in day one that may or may not really know finances, and they can pretend they know, and they can say they know, but is there a history of them knowing? And John's no longer gonna be here to make sure that that transition is sound. So, I mean, ultimately it has to be the whole board's decision, but I would invest a little money to ensure the transition is super strong and that our books are good and our finances are good long-term and we really know what we're doing, than to be on the other end, where in a few years, we're negotiating a new teacher's contract, that there's gonna be investment there. We're in a poor position because I think fiscal responsibility is our number one responsibility to the taxpayers.
And Dr. Vick, can you remind us what we paid for ISB search last year?
7,800, 7,400, 7,800. That by far the least expensive of the funds.
I mean, I agree with Rebecca's sense of like going with them again, seeing what we can get, and I would rather have somebody else than what we had. It was that.
I like the firm, don't we?
Correct. I was not a fan of him. I don't think I don't think he really did a great job on finding us. So, and this is a big thing, and we need to make sure we are certain of what we need to find and look for, so.
Yeah, I agree, considering the success that we've had in the past and the money that we've already invested, exploring the option of using somebody else within ISB, I think is a responsible option.
So would they come and do like a presentation, we would connect with a new person, and they'll come back,
I'll reach out to them this next week.
and then we'll post as soon as we can.
So the presentation could be next month.
It could be next month, yes.
Great.
in week, for sure, June or July, we'll have somebody here. For sure.
Do we want to discuss the interview process now or wait until after?
Totally up to you.
What do you guys think?
I was just giving you all the different things that I know we talked about previously that you might want to think about again. How you want to do it.
So last time we did interviews Friday night and all day Saturday. First round interviews, just the board, and then the second round interviews were also the board, and they also met with the administrative team. Any thoughts on what that process is like?
I would honestly love, before I thoroughly answer that, I would want to think just a little bit more. I mean, there were things that I liked about the process, but I think there were other pieces that we can improve on. You know, such as the screening. Obviously, we get the candidates that are pre-screened. I think we need to find a way to beef that up a little bit, whether it's through the firm or whether it's through certain individuals confirming that certain skills, capabilities exist. I love some of the notes in here that Dr. Dude outlined relative to community participation. I think that is important and it's a responsibility that the community needs to meet these candidates as well. So all of these components, as well as the staff, administration.
And community meetings is not something we did last time, so I agree.
Yeah,
We did it small, yes.
Oh, that's right, we were part of, that's right.
Yeah, but yeah, I think we need to continue that. I like that. I think that's great.
I agree, just leave it in notes. I think we can do a much better job than like what we did.
Yeah.
For sure.
Did you have any other thoughts on being part of that process last time?
I felt like, I would say how David said it as well, there were good and bad points. I would have to think about things that I would want to change regarding the process. The good things specifically, you know, I felt like Stephanie had mentioned, you know, we could, and David too, we felt, you know, our resources and our candidates. I think we could have a broader perspective of what we're looking for too, maybe be inclusive of both, you know, CSBO qualified and not, you know, maybe have a bigger pool that we could pull and narrow down ourselves. I think we could put a little more work into that on our own, you know, and really sit down together just as a team and go through. You know, because the candidates all came with great, you know, vites, as we would say. So I think that it's just something that we need to set higher standards for ourselves too.
We had 8 candidates. 6.
There were 6 names given to you for it.
Yeah, I agree, I think a larger pool to look through, because that was one of our concerns at that time. And obviously, if we are separating CSBO and superintendent candidate, we will have a larger pool.
And we were looking for a deputy last time.
And I think just setting up our community members for success by providing them with like a list of maybe questions beforehand so they can just be prepared. Because I didn't have anything, and that was the first time that I had been in on a superintendent interview, which it can be intimidating, and it's much different than any other sort of interview.
So June meeting here, from possible July posting, August?
It's possible.
That's what I'm gonna ask, like, can we get it, yeah.
We were one of the first ones to post last year.
I know, but if we can, I would like to, if we can get it out sooner than later, that'd be great, because even like, is that way then you get that out there, applications submitted, and if we can even have a little bit, well, I don't know, I felt like it was rushed for me. Like, the interviewing process, like trying to get people in and trying to interview, and I just felt like it was literally and then you're like trying to make sure you're making the right decision, and then, I
I don't know, so that's why I was
The
like,
timing was awkward when we were up against the school board conference
Yeah.
and Thanksgiving.
And the
that's
building-
that's
the building.
that's why it's like, if we can get it out sooner and do the interviews, like, I don't know if it's possible, but like October, we can think November, the absolute latest, but, cause even then we were pushing it, 'cause we were, yeah. So if we can do it sooner, I mean, that would be appreciated, but I get there's also a certain timeline too, so. But if, yeah, I would like it a little more spread out if possible, just to kind of, especially if we're gonna have a big group to kind of have to take, have interviews with. Like if we can, in the sense of interviewing people, interviewing candidates, and then if we have to bring anybody back and stuff like that, you know, I don't know. Just more time, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was really tough for the holidays, it was very pressure. Anything else?
Excellent.
Alright, moving on. Nothing in our business. So, new business, we have. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular session minutes from April 22nd, 2025, bills payable, treasurer's report, consolidated district plan 2025-26, and final 2024-25 school calendar.
Moved.
Second.
So the calendar is what we talked about previous, right?
That's this year's
This year's
calendar,
calendar.
yeah, with the
Yeah,
holiday.
holiday.
Snow day
Yeah.
or two.
Did this adjust for the concert?
This is the current year.
Current,
Okay.
This just has to be sent to the.
Correct.
notification,
Yes,
right?
we are.
Okay, sorry.
All right, roll call.
Rebecca Jenkins. Jennifer Regola.
Yes.
Nicole Segura.
Yes.
Kristen Thacker.
Yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Stephanie House.
Yes.
Josie Shattuck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 2025-0-06 of recognition and appreciation of Wendy Carr, Linda Gorel, Julie Ledke, Martha Majori, Tracy Orr, and Sandra Rossman.
So moved.
Second. Obviously, we are sorry to see our retirees go. Martha, of course, is here with us tonight. I didn't do the math on it, but it looks like over 100 years of service. That just not for Martha. I'm gonna do that to Martha. Yeah, it will be, we were surprised when some of the folks decided to walk away this year. Happy for them, sad for us. And obviously, we can't do enough to honor them and recognize them. There's a celebration planned for after hours next week. There's also a little celebration planned for Martha in June, and some other things, surprises along the way. We've been trying to see them off, and it's a positive. Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't do that Martha in advance, but it is. But we will be sad to see them go. They've been great members of our staff, and let's go carry this.
Yeah, congrats to them.
Right. So we have this resolution, everybody on the board will sign it, each one of them will get a copy of it. And I believe we also give them a gift card as well. I won't tell Martha that, don't tell Martha.
You didn't hear that. All right, roll call.
Jennifer Regola.
Yes.
Nicole Segura.
Yes.
Kristen Thacker.
Yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Stephanie House.
Yes.
Rebecca Jenkins.
I'll say yes. I wanted to say aye, but I'll say yes.
I'll
Forward to the group. Yes.
Yes, motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 2025-07 for the expenditure of funds prior to adoption of fiscal year 26 budget?
So moved.
Second.
May I ask a question? Thank you, okay, so I have two quick questions. One is, totally understand this, so it makes perfect sense. Is there a time when a tentative budget is presented to the board prior to July 1st?
We have not presented one previously to the board just based on the traditions of the district. It's something that we could do with some more notice. We're not quite ready for that to do that yet, but we could do that in the future.
And then my second question is there a threshold that the board has to approve, any spend? Like over 25,000, over 35,000, or do you have carte blanche?
I don't necessarily have carte blanche over that. We do follow the thresholds that are established in board policy as far as the amount of money that can be spent. We're talking here, the monthly bills for the month of July, obviously will be done, that's gonna be, see that number, but you can see on the board, see those bills before they're paid. It just allows us to do that without having budget in place.
Yeah, perfect, sorry, these are
It's okay.
easy questions.
It's okay.
So if, and you may not know this off the top of your head, which I totally respect, can you let us know what the threshold is? So does the board have to approve by an action any spend over 25,000 or 35,000 per board policy? 35, okay,
It's possible.
thank you.
Any other questions? All right, roll call. Nicole Segura,
Yes.
Kristen Decker,
Yes.
David Costa,
Yes.
Stephanie House,
Yes.
Rebecca Jenkins,
Yes.
Jennifer Regola.
Yes.
Josie Shattuck,
Yes.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the PGTA post-retirement MOU for 2025 through 2026?
So,
Second.
discussion. Can you talk about this actually?
So it's in the current contract, and the last two contracts I've had with the teachers union, they have bargained for a post-retirement recognition. In the memo, I give you the dates going back to 2016, and how many teachers took advantage of that, the total cost of it. It essentially requires a person who's been with the district for 20+ years to give notice in January that they're going to retire that year. If they provide that notice and meet that years of experience with the district, in September, then a payment is made to them after they retire. This is in lieu of having any kind of golden parachute language in the current contract, so there's no, it's common in many districts to have language that has final 3 years or final 4 years, a 5 or 6% pay bump for teachers. We don't have that in our contract. So this is the in lieu of that language. It is something that is discussed when we bargain that contract. In order to say yes or no, right now it's a yes or no, the board can offer it or not offer it, the deadline for that is the month of June.
And do we have any,
Next year? Nope. No, I mean, we know who's eligible to retire, we know who has the number of years of experience that could potentially take advantage of that. How many of them will do that? No idea.
can you speak to that number right now? The eligible.
Eligible that have 20 years of more experience in the district, there's a lot.
Okay.
A lot that have 20 years. That doesn't necessarily mean they have that they're going to retire, but when they hit the 20-year threshold, that's when it kicks in as eligible. I would say probably 15, 16 off the top of my head I can think of, that 20 years or more.
We're deciding on the 24, 25 year.
We've already done that. This is
We're deciding
next
for
year.
next year with no data.
No data.
Okay.
That's how it was written. We'll know in January.
Any other questions?
What was our, does anybody who was on the board previous recall what our reasoning, like, cause I know we didn't do it,
22, 23.
yeah, and then, or they didn't participate. That's
Correct,
just-
it was 21, 22 that we did not offer it. That was my first year, I can't.
What was our reasoning, John, do you recall?
You're just under
I know.
That's several years ago.
I know.
So we have to decide by June 30th? Okay, that's not my question. So these people have given a ton of service to the district, so if budget allows, I'm absolutely in support of providing them with post-retirement benefit, like they've been here a long time and dedicated. My question is, we do have a board meeting in June. If we potentially tabled it, you probably could come with the data that's how many people at 20 years and how many people have 30 or more years of service, because typically people will retire when they have their full service credit, which is 33 years. And if we knew they had 20, like we could get an approximate number of a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 15, to have more data if the board wanted to make a little bit more informed decision.
Yes.
I guess could you at least give us, again, like Rebecca's saying, like a dollar amount, if it was the maximum?
A max dollar amount?
If it was the maximum, if you could do that, can we table until June? Yeah. That's kind of what I would like to see, what the dollar amount could be if it was, yeah. And then again, I would respect, what the same thing like Rebecca said, they put in their time, but I just would like to see a number.
And maybe we can think about better language that would give us a little bit more advance notice and still allow for the benefit of the employee.
So then we will this.
Your motion second was to approve it.
Yeah,
Correct.
We need to
We need to take it back.
vote, you need to table, motion to table.
Motion to just change it.
You need to change your motion, yes.
Okay, great. May I have a motion to table the PGTA post-retirement MOU for 2025 through 2026?
So,
Second. Okay, any further questions on that? Roll call.
Kristen Thacker.
yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Stephanie House.
Yes.
Rebecca Jenkins.
Yes.
Jennifer Regola.
Yes.
Nicole Segura.
Yes.
Jody Shed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the first reading of Board Policy Press 118, additions, deletions, and changes?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Concerns? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? May I have a motion to approve a lease renewal and expansion of Longhorn Equity?
So moved.
Can you talk about it?
Sure, this is the lease for the district office location at 3103, 176. That's our current lease, it will be renewal, the expansion will be adding suite C and D for district use. It will become the transportation office, will become storage area for the district. Same terms of our current contract, just times 3.
And this would eliminate the trailer that is on.
Eliminates the trailers in the parking lot, plus the off-site storage.
And the cost is,
It's not 100% wash, it's within less than $5,000 difference.
any other questions? Roll call.
Stephanie House.
Yes.
Rebecca Jenkins.
Yes.
Jennifer Regola.
Yes.
Nicole Segura.
Yes.
Kristen Thacker.
Yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Josie Shed.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the petroleum lease agreement with Conserve FS?
So moved.
Second.
Can you talk about it?
Sure, so we have a diesel fuel tank on our property. Our large buses obviously use diesel as their main source of fuel. We have been using the current vendor, which is Blue Petroleum, for a number of years. Prior to that, they were Petro Choice. They own the tank, and we buy fuel exclusively from them when they're on site. Until we buy fuel somewhere else, and then our buses are on a longer trip somewhere, and they need to buy fuel somewhere else. Gas has been bought at a retail pump for a number of years since there's no gas tank on site. With the potential for revamping our parking lot, the fact that we moved our big buses over to the bus loop, we want to move the diesel fuel over to where the buses are. Right now, they have to come and swing around, fill up here, and drive back over to the park. In looking at that, we believe we can do a better job. We looked at vendors. Conserve FS has a better rate on fuel right now, and they would give us a better rate than Blue is giving us. Honestly, it is at the edge of the threshold of getting close for being required to go out for bid. That bid threshold for the board is $35,000 a year. It's close, okay, we're under that threshold right now. We'll probably, hopefully be under it again next year. If not, then we'll go out for bid on the actual fuel cost. If you go out, right now we're looking at leasing the equipment. We don't own it, we don't own the one that's out there now. We would lease it, no cost to us, but we'd have to buy our fuel from Conserva. Or Blue Patrol, the same kind of deal that exists. You can buy the fuel tank and the equipment, you can do that as well. Then if you want to change fuel vendors in a given year, great, you can, because you own the tank. If you go with the lease process, if you go with a different vendor, they're gonna come take the tank, bring you a new tank, you can have some downtime in there. Right now, I'm confident that Conserv gives that district the best bang for the buck on fuel cost and service, and so that's the recommendation to go with Conserv FS for that process for diesel. And we're gonna add a gas tank, since we have multiple gas vehicles now. We've moved all of those over to the bus loop. And we're gonna current gas vehicles over those.
I see in the contract that there's a list of things that we are responsible for, even within the lease, and including the pad, fencing, et cetera. Estimated cost of that.
That cost is actually embedded into the construction process that we've already approved for the gym network, included in that.
Okay.
With the exception of running the electric, that's a separate cost, but it's gonna be, I don't have it with me tonight, but I know the cost of that as well, to run power to that pump. It's gonna come from we have a junction out there by the sun, it'll come down the hill.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call?
Rebecca Jenkins.
Yes.
Jennifer Regoli.
Yes.
Nicole Segura.
Yes.
Kristen Becker.
Yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Stephanie Howard.
Yes.
Josie Shattuck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the agreement with Safe YMCA for before and after school services for the 2025-2026 school year?
Second.
No changes to the current agreement.
Questions? All those in favor?
Right.
May I have a motion to approve the student transportation vehicle for 2025-2026?
So moved. Second.
Sure. So we have a need for a vehicle with wheelchair accessibility. I provided you with two choices. One is a bus, similar to the small buses that we have now. It would be a 21+1, so you have to be able to put 21 children on there. They're in regular seats and one student in a wheelchair. The other option would be go to a van. So you get a quote for that. There's pros and cons with both scenarios. The bus is a option to lease or a lease purchase. Both of them are well in excess of $100,000 over a 5-year time frame. The year-over-year cost is cheaper at 1 year at a time than to buy the van. If you buy the van outright, it's just under $48,000, and it's your asset. The recommendation is to do the van. We already have 4 small buses that we utilize right now for special education routes and early childhood. We could certainly use the new bus that has the wheelchair access and put that onto a route for that student to be on with that route with age appropriate peers. That certainly can be done. It's not been our practice to do that with students that need that service, but we can do that. It's just a matter of how do you want to approach that long term. You have a locked-in lease currently with your van for your buses. You can't break it until after 27. If you leased another bus, you could then give back one of those buses that's out there now when that lease is done. You can certainly do that, but you're going to eat the cost of that for a couple of years for a one that you're not going to use on a regular basis. So that's kind of in a nutshell the pros and cons to it. For me, I recommend the van. you purchase the vehicle, it's your asset. If something happens and there's no longer a need to have the wheelchair accessible vehicle, you can keep it, you can sell it. If you go with a 5-year lease, and after year 1, year 2, year 3, you don't have a need for it, you're still stuck by the lease on the vehicle that you're not using. Use what it's designed to use for. I looked from both those perspectives and said, in the long run, it's probably better for the district to go with a van, but I can certainly see other perspectives on it as well.
So if we were to get lease purchase the bus, our lease with Lemonades is up in 2027. We could then just swap that out, send back one of the Lemonades that we have, or.
Yeah, if you're gonna go to a new lease in that time, you can lease less of those vehicles because you already have another one that's on the longer lease.
So the cost over those 2 years where we have the extra bus would be about the same as the van.
Yeah.
And after 2027, we would then still have this 2026 bus. And the student would be in essence, a least restrictive environment, but age appropriate peers.
Correct.
You mentioned it's not been our practice to do that.
We've never had a wheelchair accessible vehicle as part of our fleet. So I don't have any history to go back on that to show what we've done in the past. Have we had students that needed assistance? Yes, we sent our vans to their house to pick up. I don't think they did have wheelchair accessibility.
And the current bus company that we lease with will not consider an option for us to give them back one of our small buses now for a handicap accessible one for there's no room for negotiation there.
I did try to negotiate that. I was told no.
Okay.
They're not very good to work with.
And it's,
No, and the prices are.
prices are ridiculous, and it's very, there's nobody really else out there. With regards to bus companies.
That's the one that's in this particular region. There are other bus manufacturers that you could go with that are outside of the northern border region. You could do that. You've been with Midwest now, prior to me.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I've that for a long time. Once you lock into that lease, then I will get it out to us.
Question relative to the student that need this. Is this a new individual that's joining our district that's in need of this, or, okay? Junior high, late junior high, elementary, okay, all right. I was just looking at it from, is this a 1 year? Is this a 1 year need, and then the student might be going off to high school, or?
This is so long term need.
So, it seems like the van is the more fiscally responsible decision in the short term, but help me understand, so like this child and their class goes on a field trip. What does it look like for them if we have a van?
Exactly what you think it looks like.
And there's no discrimination concern.
I would have a concern. It's not a great look. It's not a good look.
On the other hand, when they have a disability that affects their health to the point student has, being on a bus with a bunch of kids with gyms is not a great look either.
I wouldn't portray it as a discrimination thing. I think that's a good strong.
And John and I looked at the van and there is seating for other kids, so just like right now, we have a student can't have lunch in the cafeteria with his friends. He can't sit in a room with a couple of his friends and limit his exposure. In a van, that would also be the case to limit that with of discrimination or that feeling of discrimination.
That's good.
Have we talked to the parents about transportation?
They've asked if we will provide it. We do provide it for other students in that program, so it would be discriminatory not to.
Have they indicated a preference between the van and the bus?
this is their oldest and only child, so they don't know what we have to offer. They were asking what we could offer. They were even asking questions about, is a stroller okay, or do we need to have a wheelchair to go into the stand? So they're just starting to go through this process. Maggie McPherson has been amazing, our PT, about working with them and what resources we do have. But she has a degenerative disease that may make her more susceptible as she gets older.
That's super helpful. So
And
if
you're laughing
the, so, that's very helpful, so thank you so much. So if, like if the administration's recommendation is a ban given those circumstances, then it's more fiscally responsible, it seems like the better decision.
Based on that, maybe that's.
What is it?
Yeah, very, very helpful.
Well, and I think, you know, as Dr. Du pointed out, it's an asset that the school owns. So if the need becomes different, if, you know, if there becomes other apparent situations that need to be addressed, it's an asset that we can sell and get what's needed at that time.
Any other questions? All right, roll call.
Nicole Segura.
Yeah.
Kristen Thacker.
Yes.
David Costa.
Yes.
Stephanie House.
Yes.
Rebecca Jenkins.
Yes.
Jennifer Golden.
Yes.
Josie Shattuck.
Yes.
Motion carried.
May I have a motion to adjourn at 8:26 PM?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.